I'm very much enjoying the third edition of the Horus Heresy. I even managed to get my first game in deploying my Imperial Fists at 2,000 points. A minor loss, but a very good game and a steep learning curve. And I'm also very much enjoying bringing you more content weekly on the Horus Heresy, and you guys seem to be gobbling it all up and you seem to be hungry for more. So with that in mind, this week's video, I'm going to be giving you the awesome Deimos pattern Predator painted up in Imperial Fist colors. I'm going to show you how to stipple, weather, dry brush, contrast this tank to looking really nice on the tabletop and taking very little time to do it. So if you're looking forward to that, make sure you stick around and enjoy this video. Before I get into it all the way though, I just want to get all that annoying stuff out of the way that no one really likes to hear, but it is super important for the growth of the channel and to keep clothes on my back. So that is, of course, if you're enjoying this content, make sure you give the video a like, ask me any questions, or let me know any other videos you would like to see in the comments below, and make sure you're subscribed. Also think about checking out Patreon, becoming a member there, or as a channel member here on YouTube. You get a bunch of different benefits, access to private Discord server, extra content every single week, and you get involved in different events and stuff that we host over there. They also get the updates on my game the whole way through, giving me feedback and seeing all the crazy mistakes that I did make. And also, if you are a big spender and like to buy yourself lots of hobby, why not save yourself some money? So you have some affiliate links down below. So if you live in the UK, if you live in Ireland, or if you live in the rest of Europe, we have links down below for shops for all those places where you'll get yourself a nice little discount, and there'll be a nice kickback to the channel as well. So okay, all that stuff is out of the way. We can now just enjoy painting a tank for the rest of the video. Thank you so much. Let's get into it. And this is the Deimos pattern Predator. It's a very, very nice tank. Very much do like the shape of the Heresy style tanks. And I'm not going to lie, I've already played a game with this tank in its grey plastic form. I do apologise, I was just too keen to play New Horus Heresy, so I played with an unpainted army. It's not like me, it won't happen again, I promise. But there was something very nostalgic and very enjoyable about pushing a Predator around a table and firing las cannons at things. And same thing with Land Raiders and deploying tactical squads and Terminators. I'm not harping on the new 40k. I love new 40k. I love Primaris Marines. I love, Redemptor Dreadnoughts and all those kind of things. But there's something very, very enjoyable about the old school tanks with the old school names. It just makes my heart happy. So it was very fun to do that. So I was very keen to get this tank painted up. This is the set of paints that I would traditionally use to paint my yellow tanks that I've done in other videos. Brown, Arvalin Sunset, Uriel Yellow, Flash Kids Yellow, and Dorn Yellow. So I'm going to do the same thing with the first 4 colors. So all the way to the end of those yellows. But then I'm going to add contrast yellow in, and then a Wraithbone dry brush at the end, which will change things up just a small bit and help it blend a little bit better in with the current stage of infantry that I'm painting. I'm going to be using the Artist Opus range of dry brushes because they've got really nice stiff bristles, which work a treat for the stippling technique, which is what I use the brushes for all the time. It's a lot of fun. And like I said, I've done videos on stippling Imperial Fist tanks before, Sons of Horus tanks, Blood Angels tanks, all sorts of stuff. And I'm just going to show you how I'm going to very quickly and very easily get some nice yellow on this tank. From a black base coat, I might add. So spray the model entirely black. As nice and as plain black as you can get. And then we're going to go for Dryad bark, and we are going to stipple this all over. We're going to build up some warm tones with the Dryad bark, kind of push ourselves away from the cold black colors until we're left with something like that. From here, we're going to go to Averlin Sunset. We're basically going to be repeating the process. But every time we repeat the process with the next color and the next color and the next color, we're going to go slightly lighter, only slightly lighter each time. And the model is going to look like absolute trash for the first 3 or 4 layers. And then everything's going to get tidied up, and there's going to be this kind of click moment where it actually looks really nice. At least in my humble opinion, I think it looks really nice. So if you are at the point now in the video and you're like, what in the hell is this idiot doing with this beautiful tank stippling on yellow over brown, telling me it's going to look like a nice Imperial Fist tank? Please be patient. Follow the process. If you get to the end of the video and you hate what I do, then you can jump in the comments and tell me you hated it, and that's totally fine. But at least wait till the end before you do it. Because at this point right now, my God, it looks bad, right? It's really, really bad. But that's okay. We're going to work it up and we're going to fix it. Uriel Yellow will be the next one we go to. And like I said, we're just going to continue stippling it up. So like I said, I've already played my first game of the Horus Heresy. I played a 2,000 point game last Saturday. I played against Blood Angels v Imperial Fist, big paintball game. It was a lot of fun, a steep learning curve, but a very enjoyable system. The reactions are key. If you're thinking about playing the game and you're having a little bit of time to read the rules, please do pay attention to the reactions because they will make the difference between having very successful turns and not so successful turns. My opponent was a little bit better reading reactions, therefore I slightly lost the game, but that's totally fine. I learned. I'll move on. We'll do better next time. And my Imperial Fists will be even more ready for games. Especially when we're not playing paintball, we're playing an actual heretical legion. Okay, as you can see, the yellow has jumped up to quite a bright and vibrant color from that last stipple. We don't have a brush streaks at all because of this technique, but we do have a slightly mottling kind of style, which is something that I really like. I think it looks really natural on a tank. It adds so much texture and it looks really, really nice as opposed to just a flat yellow color. I think can make it look more like a child's toy as opposed to a tank in a miniature modeling game or modeling miniature game, whatever way around I said that. Thanks for thinking of me. So yeah, we're going to go in for that last Uriel yellow and stipple that across the top, which of course is again pushing that vibrancy up, but leaving that other shades of yellow all the way through the tones. And as you can see, I'm pressing a little bit lighter each time I go because I do want to leave those previous colors behind and just have this kind of whole plethora of yellows fading through each other on the armor. Now from here, I'm going to be adding the Imperial Fist yellow contrast. Now I didn't do this previously in other videos where I did this technique because I was doing a different way of painting infantry. Now I've got a whole new way of painting infantry, which does include the the Imperial Fist yellow contrast. So in order for the tank to blend in with that infantry a little bit more, I'm going to add this in now. As you can see, I'm going for a quite thin kind of a glaze style just to change the hue a tiny bit because it's so translucent. Obviously, all those are like I said, that modeling technique and stuff will show through the contrast very well and it will tidy it up. So very quick, very easy, but I think it looks really cool. And obviously everything looks a little bit messy and we're going to go for one more dry brush, an actual dry brush this time of Wraithbone. Wraithbone is the color that I'm going to be using for edge highlighting all of my infantry. Therefore, if I use it as a dry brush to add at the end of this yellow, it'll add as an edge highlight. It'll help once again blend it into the infantry a little bit more. Right now we have a very nice shade of yellow. I think this looks really good. Got nice shading in all the recesses. All the kind of details and stuff are popping out and looking really cool. I'm really happy with this. Now, when I'm doing actual dry brush work, I tend to prefer the Games Workshop flat dry brushes than the Artist Opus or the Army Painter kind of round makeup-y brush stuff. I'm not a big fan of those for actual dry brushing, which is kind of funny. Spent many years perfecting my skills using these dry brushes to get the effects that I want, so I'm going to continue to do that. And obviously, I'm directing the brush to mainly catch the sharp edges of the tank, making all those details. It'll catch all the rivets and make them pop, and it'll look really nice. The next step, I think, is probably the most satisfying step of the entire process of painting this tank. And that is we are going to go in with a nice matte black paint. I'm actually using the Too Thin Coats range of black paints to get the blacks done. I'm trying to line them up here in front of me. Doom, Death Black, Death Reaper, and Dungeon Stone Grey will be the triad of colors that I go for this. But doing the Doom, Death Black to block in all of the bits of this model now that aren't yellow will tidy everything up, make it look all neat and tidy, and it will make the yellow look fantastic, which I know is a strange thing to say, but it's super important. I always say this to people when they show me their models like half painted and they want to know my opinion on it, and like they've obviously airbrushed it or they've sprayed it, so the model is on a base and the base is covered in red and all sorts of other colors, and they're like, look at the model. I can't look at the model, man. My eyes are drawn to the horrible, like messed up base. I know you haven't done the base yet, but it does mess up the whole process. If you're ever going through the process of painting a miniature and you're unsure as to whether you're doing a good job, you're unsure about the color, the tone, the temperature of the model, and you have a kind of a messed up base, just black in the base again. Tidy that all up so you can just see the model with fresh eyes, and I promise you it'll make a huge difference. As you can see here, I'm just tidying up the black areas, but what it's done to the yellow here, you can finally appreciate the yellow as a solid thing here because all the other bits are tidy. Like I said, I think this looks really, really well, really tidy. And I'm ready to start working on the other black areas. And like I said, we're doing the Too Thin Coats triad. So we started with the Death Reaper. sorry, the Doom Death Black. So now we're going into Death Reaper, and we're going to once again revert to the stippling technique, because I do want that mottled thing to kind of exist across all surfaces to help blend the black and the yellow together. As you know, I'm being very careful with this. I've gone to a smaller stippling brush, and I'm just aiming for kind of the middle of the panel. We don't want to go around the outside because we'll hit the yellow, and we don't want the outside. We want the middle bit, which is where the highlights would be, and that's where we're getting brighter and brighter and brighter. So stick with that as a concept, and it will not steer you wrong. This is the first time you've seen the turret. We are doing the turret in black. I did ask across on my Patreon to help me out with my color decision here. And the unanimous vote was, of course, to go for a black turret. Everyone knows I'm doing a kind of Sigismund style company for the majority of my army. Therefore, if you do a black turret, I can put some Templar crosses on it and help it blend in with his company a little bit better. So I'm really appreciative to have that resource of the awesome Patreon community to help me with those decisions. I'm not going in completely blind. Dungeon Stone Grey would be the last one, and if you were doing this like a normal brushstroke, it would be far too strong. The black would then actually look grey. But because we have that like layers of black the whole way through, it will feel like a nice black coat, but just highlighted. So as you can see, I'm going through, I'm going once again into the middle of the kind of sections again, but a little bit lighter and a little bit more towards the middle. You can see the difference between the front and the back now is quite kind of prevalent, quite noticeable. And obviously doing the exhaust covers in black as well. If I could change anything about the whole process of me painting this tank, it would be to leave these exhaust vent kind of smokestacks, if you will, off the model. So make it easier to stipple up the side yellow of the tank. Going around them was a bit of a pain. But I just made it work. You'll see with the weathering later on how I helped make that work. Now, of course, doing the same thing for the turret. You can see I'm letting that black bleed through, and doing the light grey dry brush or stipple in the middle. Now obviously it looks a little bit brighter now. When it dries, it goes quite a bit darker, and it suits better. Okay, we now have the kind of yellow and the black done. So the last thing I'm going to do for the black is I'm just going to add a light dry brush of silver. I'm going to catch some of those edges, but then I'm also going to aim for there's a reason I blacked in the tracks again when I was blocking in everything else with the black. It's because when I'm doing tracks, I used to just block them in silver. And it used to be such a stark, they would like jump off of the tank. They would be so stark and just ruin everything. So now nowadays, all I do is I paint the entire tracks in black, and then I dry brush them silver. After that, I'll add a little bit of weathering powder into them to help make them blend into the ground and the bases of the rest of the army. But I find this to be a much more natural thing, and I think they look a lot better. When I have this dry brush out, I'm of course going to dry brush all the other metallic bits. So those smokestacks are going to get a light dry brush. Because we have the nice black underneath it, nice and tidy, it's going to basically just act like a really nice highlighted thing. You don't want to draw your attention. Like the yellow is the primary focus. The turret, all the transfers, the weathering is going to be awesome. Smokestacks, you don't need to worry about too much. You can see that the dry brush is giving a really nice effect, and it's working a treat. You're going to keep that dry brush going across the surface of all the black, catching all those rivets and sharp edges. It's just going to help it act a little bit more weathered, a little bit more kind of used. While we have the silver on the paint palette, we are going to go in and block in all those other metallic bits across the tank, which are mostly the 4 las cannon barrels that exist, the twin linked one on the turret and the 2 single ones on the sponsons we're going to do in silver. And then if you can find any specific areas on the tank that you want to have silver, any hatches or anything like that, this is the time where you would go in and do it. I'm going to be using the marine juice now. I'm just going to wash down those las cannons on metallic areas. If you want to know what the marine juice is, then you can go to the video where I painted a Saturnine Terminator. This is where I first used it. I made the concoction up and I got to have a play with it. So I learned it. All the details about where I learned it from and stuff are in that video. And then I am a huge believer in transfers. I love transfers. Anyone who doesn't like transfers or doesn't use transfers have not given them enough time. I promise you, if you give yourself kind of 2, 3, 4 hours of practice with transfers, you will never not put transfers on tanks and marines and stuff like that. It just adds such a flair and such an element of character to them that, like I said, I will never go back. Look how cool this turret looks with the Imperial Fist symbol on one side, the Templar cross on the other. I've even put some Imperial Fists on the little sponson covers there, which actually get covered up by armor panels. You don't see it. Another thing I like using is weathering powders. I like everything being a little bit more dark and a little bit more used. These tanks are not in, you know, Power Wash Simulator. These are trundling across the battlefields of Terra. Constant shelling going on, constant debris being blasted up into the air, landing down on top of these tanks, all kind of firepower and explosions. The tracks are going to be weathered, there's going to be dust everywhere. So I really like to feel that with the model. So I went for some black pigment powder, and I went in around the exhaust pipes, imagining that they would kind of dust up and black up a bit of the yellow paint as well. So I went in behind the exhausts, hence fixing that problem I had earlier where I couldn't stipple in the yellow around them. And then I have my like red Martian-y bases with my Marines. So I fed in a little bit of red soil in on the cracks and recesses of the tank. And of course around the tracks as well. I did it on the turret as well. Fed that into the cracks and recesses, which obviously helps to add an extra bit of color. A little bit more excitement to that part of the model, which is quite dull. After that, I sprayed the entire model with Minotaur and Varnish. It obviously helped stick all of the weathering powder to the tank, help bleed the transfers into the paint job a little bit better, tidy it all up. And I was going to call it there, but then I realized I forgot to paint the windows around the tank hatch bit. So it kind of makes sense though, because the last step of painting the little windows would be to gloss varnish them. If I had gloss varnished them and then sprayed them with the Minotaur and Varnish, it would have dulled that gloss. So this is actually a better way around of doing it. And it's very simple. It's just as jet a black as humanly possible and paint in all the windows with that. And then after that, you're going to go for 3 stages of red. Mephiston, Evil Sun Scarlet, Wild Rider red. And you just do kind of like a crescent moon. If you leave the top left quarter black and then do the rest in red, and then with each layer of red, you just go a little bit further away from that top left corner. Just do the entire right hand side and a little bit down the middle, and then kind of a little bit closer to the right hand edge, and then a little bit down the middle. And then a dot of white in the top left corner of the windows, and then a little bit of varnish. That's all you need, and it does make absolutely a huge amount of difference. Once again, with the addition of like the weathering, you know, the dry brush and the silver to catch the edges, adding the weathering powder, doing the little bits on the windows, and adding transfers. These little details are the things that a lot of people will leave off of painting their tanks. And that's when your tanks will look like really boring on the battlefield. They will be just this like one color. Even if you layered that color really, really well, it will like a Blood Angel will just be a red box with some silver barrels. And to me, that's just so dull. It's not my style at all. I much prefer having a little bit more intrigue and a little bit more kind of madness to it, if you will. And I find doing these deals really does help with that. Very quickly adding that art code in so all those windows pop. And then after that, we are going to show you some images. I took some photos I took of this tank. First of all, in a kind of a Heresy style setting, and then against a black backdrop. And there we have it, my finished Deimos pattern Predator, ready for the Horus Heresy. I am absolutely delighted with the final result of this tank. I cannot wait to now deploy it in a game now that it's fully painted. I would love to know your thoughts and feelings on how this video went, and I would love to know what other videos you'd like for the Horus Heresy, and I will get on them as soon as possible. Thank you guys so much for sticking around to the end of the video. I'll see you in the next one.